Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for agreeing to take part in this panel. I'm totally blown away by everybody that's agreed to be a part of this. So what I wanted to do to start is I'm just going to give a very brief introduction, but I really wanted you guys to introduce yourselves so that people can get used to your voices if they're hearing this as a pure audio version rather than watching this on YouTube, if that's all right. So starting with Eddie Levy from Undercover Marketing. Eddie, you want to say hey?
Sure. So this is Eddie Levy from Undercover Marketing. We're based here in New York City. We're a relatively new company. We've been around about 8 months, and we're having a fun time here in the pandemic trying to come up with new ways to, bring money to our clients.
Cool. Do you want to mention any of the clients that you currently work with?
I can only mention the ones that are not undercover. You see what I did there? We currently do supplemental marketing for Kill Switch Engage, Blue October, the Insane Clown Posse, Low Cut Connie, a band called Dead, and another band called AVAT from Miami, Florida.
Cool. Thank you. Mike Mowry from 10th Street Management. Mike, you want to do a brief introduction?
Guys, I'm Mike. I manage Ice 9 Kills. I'm delighted to bring three of my favorite guys in marketing to this panel. So that's what I got. Thanks, Paul.
Cool. And Tim Brennan from Spinefarm Records. Tim, great to have you. Thanks so much for taking part.
Yeah, really excited to be part of this. I've been working with Mike for years and worked with Eddie and Derek on various projects. So I'm happy to be part of this panel.
And Derek Brewer from Manifest Group.
Well,
Derek?
actually with Shelter Music Group now as about a little less than a month.
Wow. Okay. My apologies. All right.
No,
Breaking news. Breaking news.
It hasn't been formally announced, so I guess this is an exclusive, apparently.
Well, very cool. So who are you working with at Shelter?
Sure. Well, I mean, that company has bands like Fleetwood Mac, ZZ Top, Perfect Circle. I brought over all my clients that I had from the company that I started, Manifest. So they include bands like Dance Gavin Dance, Palais Royale, Crown the Empire, Dying Fetus, several others for sure.
Cool. So very cool. Well, awesome. Thanks all for being here. Eddie, if it's all right, let's start with you since you're you got marketing right in your job title. So can you talk to me a little bit about what is your strategy when you sit down with a new client in order to figure out what's going to work for them marketing wise?
I mean, it really depends on the client. The way we view our clients is nobody's the same. Everybody's completely different. So we take a meeting with each person and we tailor our approach to what the client needs. So I can't give you like a one box. This is how we do it. Every single artist we touch is a different approach. And I think that's important.
Sorry, are there like sort of commonalities that things, you must start with something like, do you ask them to get the ball rolling on how they want to be represented, that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, I think you have to start having a conversation with an artist about where they come from, what they believe in, and what they're looking to do, what their real goals are. And then from there, you lead the way. I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff here where we're just trying to figure out who these people are that are consuming the rock and the metal music at this point.
I mean, I think one of the things I notice about having worked with Eddie is he brings a vast knowledge. When we were working on a client together, he brought tons of his own insight and research to the project and immediately kind of stormed in with a bunch of ideas.
Cool. And Tim, when you are working with your artists, how often are you using a third-party marketing firm, and how often are you directly involved in what the band's doing? And how much input do you take from the band itself?
I think taking input from the band itself is absolutely key. We always say we're marketing people, not a product. I think that's really key, especially, in this scene where, sometimes you're working with a band from, the ground up. Others are established, but, are we looking for different angles for them? How are we looking to work with them? As far as hiring outside companies, it really depends on the project. We don't do a ton of that. We do a lot.
Not yet.
Not yet. We've been, we take a lot in-house. Spinefarm is a label that's part of Universal Music Group. So we have a lot of resources kind of at our fingertips. We kind of operate as an indie within a major. So it really depends on the project, the artist, and we go right from there.
Derek, can you talk about how you work with artists who you start working with from the ground up? Does versus those who have already come to you with a certain perspective on how their marketing should go?
And I apologize. Can you just repeat the first part of the question? Sorry.
Yeah, like how do you approach marketing for artists that you start working with from the ground up versus those who come to you with something already somewhat established?
Okay. Yeah, no, for sure. Basically, it starts off with just either in person or over the phone or video chat, just talking to the artist with the team that I have surrounding me and finding out, the various different sellable points within that particular act and what would resonate with, potential new fan base and their current fan base, and really hitting to those points and, covering all the bases surrounding that, from the social media perspective to the overall aesthetic and look to the promo photos and, basically all that.
Mike, when you were working with your clients, how do you find those sellable points that Derek's talking about? Are you looking for visual? Are you looking for sound, personality?
I mean, I think it's a little bit all of the above. And, like Eddie said, you kind of do it on a case-by-case basis. I think, what attracts us to artists is, typically multiple parts of the total package. And as we get in and get familiar, just by kind of the leading questions that come with anybody that's got the, experience that any of us on this, panel have, that stuff starts to come out. And then we look for, the things that can really immediately be exploited or kind of developed. And then the other ones that need more work and will take more time. And I think, we've kind of always got, the multi-tiered strategy in mind, but knowing we play to the strengths of our artists. If they're better at the visual component of it, we're going to double down on the visual component of it while trying to develop those other things. So,
Eddie, do you find like the artists that you work with, are they in? I would think that they're inside the bubble a little bit and have a really hard time kind of seeing how they are perceived. What do you bring to the table, and how do you help artists recognize these sellable points and these things about themselves that their audiences and potential audience will latch onto?
Again, every artist is different. I'll give you a good example though. Like, one of the things we did recently with the Insane Clown Posse is we tried to, we pitched them on this thing called custom clown clips, which is basically you can go to this website, you can have one of the guys do a custom clip for you, and we'll turn it around in 6 days. Kind of like Cameo, but a lot more clown makeup to it. And instead of going to your usual suspects or just putting it up on social media, had a whole conversation with the publicist, talked to the manager, and partnered with Forbes, and kind of got the guys and the team outside of the comfort zone where they would normally have done stuff. I mean, to think that Forbes would cover the Insane Clown Posse in 2020 was kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. It's crazier than magnets, right? With ICP, I mean, they're such for marketing wise, there's such a defined vision at this point. Is something like those clips, is that part of an overall strategy, or is this like it's a low hanging fruit idea? Let's just go out and do it.
It's an overall strategy. I think that the band has become more infamous for their name than for their music. And this is just another step for us to try to bring their music back to the forefront and get people talking about them again, so we can reintroduce some new tunes here in a couple of months.
Excellent. And Tim, on the topic of partnerships, like Forbes, I mean, our partnerships from a marketing perspective seem like they're a really awesome opportunity. Is that something that you guys seek out, or is that something that is just, it's much more difficult to get? And then how does that, if you do, how does that work between established artists and the developing artists that you work with?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, it's absolutely important. I think one of the things we try and do with all of our artists is to find out where their interests lie first. Whether we team up with our publicity teams, we always have a questionnaire that goes out to them. What are you into? Are you an extreme sports guy? Are you a gamer? Where does your passion lie outside the music? Because obviously the music's first, but then we try and find ways to expand. I think that also goes into like the sync world too, where sync can absolutely change even the course of a project. It can bring a project that couldn't get off the ground, and if you get the right sync and you're with the right partner, it can propel you into the stratosphere very, very quickly. Paul, can you repeat the second part of the question though?
Just what are the types of partnerships that you seek out for those artists that you're working with that are developing versus those that are a little bit more established?
Developing stuff, I think that we always try and find a merch deal to work with, or a merch sponsor. I think that's a good way to start. We work hand in hand with the managers to try and help get sponsorships, whether it's gear sponsorships too. Is this a band that's going to appeal to all the instrument blogs and stuff like that? I think that's a good place to start. And yeah, I guess kind of starting there are some of the key ones.
Excellent. Mike, you talked before with me about how you can implement a really great strategy for trying to attract those gear sponsorships early in your career by kind of acting like you're already sponsored in a way, if that makes sense. Can you sort of talk about that a little bit more? And can you expand on that perhaps into other types of brand partnerships beyond just gears?
Well, it kind of goes back to what Tim had said, where, they do this questionnaire with their artists of the things that they're interested in. And so people in bands naturally, presumably the instrumentalists are, fans of the instruments that they're actually playing. And so, sort of the easiest way to get the attention of, somebody who you might want to endorse you later on is to start endorsing the product anyways.
So, like, fake it to make it is what you're saying?
Absolutely.
I mean, a little bit, right? Or just, self-promotion or promotion of the product that you actually like using.
I mean, Mike, when we did Tooth Grinder, like, we pushed the Vans angle, really hard. We're like, Will's showing how much he loved his Vans during every show. Will's was the drummer of Tooth Grinder, and I think we really pushed it, and we were able to get a sponsorship with them.
Yeah, and that was one of those cool ones where, like, it wasn't necessarily that he came to us and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. It's like he was doing it. Someone on the team, it might have even been Tim, noticed it and then said, hey, can we do something bigger with this? And we all, somebody had a relationship with bands and we went to them, and yeah, it started to develop organically. So I think we've all got countless examples of ways that our artists have done it. And, there's times that it doesn't work either. They do it. And that's why it kind of has to be, well, it doesn't kind of have to be, it has to be genuine. If you're doing it just with the sole idea of eventually getting endorsed, you may be left, disappointed in the end.
No, but that's a real easy way to, not easy, but it's a helpful way to get the gear endorsements for sure, though. If you have band members that do have a decent enough following on social media, and they might not be endorsed by this particular drum company, but if they do have the kit and they're constantly doing playthroughs, or they're doing their photos on Instagram and they're hashtagging in the company, that gives us the ammo to go to those companies at NAMM or whenever you can get them on the phone or email to show them footage or assets showing ammunition, if you will, of saying, look, this artist has already been promoting this brand over and over. These are the views. These are how many likes. What can we do further to enter into a more actual partnership to where we can build this from bigger than where it is right now?
And Derek,
yeah, I was just going to say, Paul, to expand on that, right? It would then go, let's say, whoever Derek's artist is that's got these great endorsements, they've got a new product coming out. if the relationship's been built over time and it is, you know, mutually symbiotic, he can go to them and say, hey, how about some promotional posts for whatever our product is? And that's really kind of the key when you've got, you know, multiple lanes of those types of outside sources helping you promote the product that you're doing. You know, it's like influencers, you know, but more from a brand perspective.
Oh, very cool. Derek, on that topic of of influencers and brands, and then the band itself, your clients have their own brands, and some of those brands are extremely different from one to the next.
Yeah.
So how are you balancing the need to try to get some of these brands and influencers involved with your acts while at the same time protecting their brands? How much of a balance is that?
I mean, so if I'm just going by like some examples of even on this panel, like a couple of the bands that stick out that have like this very dedicated following that they built up over several years, Ice Nine Kills, Insane Clown Posse. I mean, I can say Dance Gavin Dance on my end. It's like they have put together a style and a style, aesthetic, brand, if you will, of what fans, it's even outside the music, but what fans can anticipate and look to in terms of putting out content, the merch items, the album covers. There seems to be a trend that follows, and like that to me is like so valuable over time because you built this up organically or, you know, through various discussions with management or labels, but you built up this whole world around you that just to me helps sell as much tickets or music as the music itself. You see what I'm saying? Like you like with Dance Gavin Dance, we put out an album. There's typically the same person that does the album artwork, goes from the next to the next, and there's a theme, there's a following. You see it with a lot of the, you know, the other artists that I just mentioned. There are different processes that follow that the fans, the hardcore fans, the fans that have been there for many years, they've grown accustomed to and they appreciate it, and it just helps overall on the whole thing. Now, in terms of like influencers, I personally haven't had too much experience with like any, and maybe I'm not totally clear on the definition of influencers, but I haven't had too much experience with actual quote unquote influencers, but I have started to just very recently with TikTok, just entered that world where we are reaching out to, for some certain projects that I have, we are reaching out to actual people on TikTok that have a very good following, that know how to do it, and we're feeding them some ideas and some pieces of the different songs for them to make videos to, and we're going to see how that actually goes and how far that spreads.
What's your TikTok handle there, Derek?
Oh, my TikTok handle? Let me know about after this call. I'll make my own, and I'll let you know, and you can follow me. My first follower. I do not have one, but I wish for this call I could have better input, but like literally these past 2-3 weeks, I've been diving into it a bit deeper and starting to get some real know-how into like how to go in. And there are individual people out there that, you know, that actually are starting their own companies, you know, freelancers that have much more knowledge than I do and have access to these people that have their big followings and can pitch ideas to them, and then they'll run with it.
Eddie, how much of a wormhole is TikTok? Should we dive in at all here?
I mean, I don't personally think it's very effective for a lot of the bands that we're talking about here. It skews very, very young. I'm trying to play with it a little bit for Blue October because the songs have a little bit of a dance vibe to them, the newer tracks. But as it relates to like an Ice Nine Kills or, you know, a Tooth Grinder, it just doesn't. It's not the right audience.
Yeah, like we have an urban side project from one of our artists that we're trying to start there. I don't know if I can take, you know, just for example, I work with Bullet from a Valentine and Atreyu, and I don't really know if TikTok is the right audience for those two bands. You know, I'd prefer to start, you know, really, you know, we're really going at Twitch a lot harder than a TikTok because most of our bands are gamers. You know, it just seems like we have more influence there. Like we premiered a video for the Browning on Twitch because he's a giant gamer. So it's just one example.
How did that go? Well, on the premiere and the video on that.
It went great because Johnny from the Browning is a giant gamer. He has a really big following. It was super interactive. He has his own custom, emojis and stuff.
Right.
Like he's really set up there. And, it just gave a really nice kick in the ass to that campaign. Sure.
Well, and like I'll say, Paul, I don't know, the platform is sort of independent. I mean, why I like working with a guy like Eddie or, a guy like Tim and, Derek and I have, worked at the same company before. It's like, it's really about the idea, it's about finding this unique lane that no one else has really, thought of for this for whatever the particular artist is. And then, depending on whichever platform you deem the most important, if not all of them, you figure out the strategy that's important for those.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, Mike, let's just sort of talk about the idea of brand. And Ice Nine Kills has been mentioned a couple times now. Like they're over the with this Silver Screen, there was a very, very defined, very specific branding for the band that was, with the videos and everything. It all was very, very consistent. How sort of well-defined was that brand early on, and how has it evolved? Is there any fear of being sort of trapped by the brand at all for the band as artists?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think it's developed over time, and I can't say whether or not I think we'll be trapped. I mean, the beautiful thing is there's, precedent set for horror-infused, metal, and I think, thankfully our singer is smart enough to be able to sort of weave his own story that is to come. And those are things that we've considered. This has been a fantastic foundation that's been laid that we can then explore from. So, I mean, to me, right, like what's been so cool, and, we worked with Eddie's company on this was, we released that record in October of 2018, and, October 2019 came around, and part of the challenge, as Derek can attest as a manager, you got just so many things that are happening at any one point. Sometimes the marketing, is it's important, but to dig in and find a unique angle on any given day, week, month, or year is actually part of the biggest challenge. So Eddie called me up and just said, hey, what are you doing for the month of October? And I said, well, I got this idea, that idea, this idea. He goes, I got your idea. And then he's a guy that, came up with the idea because that's a personality that Eddie has. But more importantly, right, he's able to take it out of my hands and go implement it. And I think that's really, regardless of, the Ice Nine Kills brand, which is incredibly important. If we didn't have that, it probably wouldn't have lent itself to Eddie's idea. But, what I love about a good marketer in both Tim and Eddie is like they're helping us as managers find whatever that idea is and really figure out the way to implement it.
The good thing about your band is that Halloween happens every year. So it's like it's a never ending marketing cycle for you. I mean, it's really a great brand.
And Eddie, are you looking at like something like a fan avatar to align with the brand of the band and then trying to find that idea where those two things meet? Or it's a good idea. We know it works. And you just go with
that. I mean, I'll tell you the idea real quick. We don't have to get too deep into it, but obviously the band's all around horror and Halloween and that feeling. So I called Mike up. We called the president of the label. We got the approval on the budget, and we basically went up to their home state of Massachusetts, right? Is that where they're from? We're sure it's one of those. And on 3 days' notice, we rented out a haunted house the week of Halloween. We brought an entire film crew up there with us. We dressed Spencer, the lead singer of the band, up as a character in the haunted house and spent the entire day filming him scaring the shit out of his fans because we opened it up just to the Ice Nine Kills fans. And it was a great piece of content. We got 5 pieces of content out of it. Traveled. It was really good.
That's awesome. Tim, can you give, do you have like an example or an anecdote of something that you guys have done at Spinefarm where it was that perfect mix of brand and fan, that something that really clicked? or something that you're working on now that you're excited about?
Working on now is tough because the whole world has stopped. I will say, well, one project I'm really excited about is one of our new signings, Saul. I'll just use them as an example. Because one of the reasons why we signed the guys, and this kind of, I think, ties everything a little bit together, we saw that the guys had been calling their fans equals and basically saying, we're no bigger than you, you're on the same level. We're all in this together. They had a hit song called Brother, which was about the two members of the band, their brother had passed away, so it was a letter to them. And it just felt so real. We were able to do an acoustic version. We're still working on that video to be a memorial piece for that song, and it kind of has led itself into the timing now, with everything going on. Everybody's lost someone, and having this fan group called the Equals that's been so active has really helped to drive us, like they want to be on the same level as everybody. So they did their live concert shoot from their garage now for the quarantine. Another example is with Atreyu with the Superhero song we just released. It was originally written from the perspective of, being a superhero to your kids. But we talked about it and we're like, there's so many everyday superheroes right now. So, we're trying to tie that song into thanking people, and just and running with that. Sometimes it's the moment, sometimes it's the band imagery. I think with Ice Nine Kills too, I think you guys would agree, but you have to have the chops to start too. Like it starts there, and then when you can tie the image together, it can be magical.
That's awesome. Thank you. Derek, with your clients, how amenable are they to your ideas, and how often are they coming to you with ideas that you can find ways to apply?
Sure. It depends on the band and what their personalities are and how adept they are to their, own likeness. And some bands, like you take a band like Palais Royale, 90% of the ideas are starting at least from them and wanting to implement because they know their brand so well. There's, then in other cases, it's just like a lot of things that derive from, the group chats that I have with each individual ones. The main thing that I've found that's been the most helpful in making any of this happen, and I'm sure Mike can also agree to this as management, is the constant communication with your bands and just talking ideas, talking about the different songs, and whether it's my idea or whether it's one of their ideas or it's half and half, or the execution of it all is the most important. Like we put together these really cool ideas, it's seeing it through and making it happen, that and watching it grow. That's where the most success comes from. But to go back to your original point, there's no set path. Like it comes from any which way. And mostly it's because we're all just having constant discussions about the overall project.
Mike, Derek mentioned the idea of ideas versus execution, and Eddie mentioned earlier budgets. Like, how are you guys trying to find creative ways to do things within a budget?
Yeah, I think that's part of the beauty. Every one of us on this call has had a background of scrapping and knowing how to do it. Like all of us more or less come from the same world. We've known each other 15, 20 years, and probably why we've ended up on this call and is, we know how to do that. And it looks different every single time, but the beauty is, I think so much of it is about like trying to find these ways to validate the artist, in sort of a step by step, capacity. And so you do something at the lowest budget, that gets some eyes and ears. And again, when Eddie talked about going and filming this event, cool. It was amazing to do it at this, location that was near the band's town and to have it Spencer involved, but we created all this content that gets to be spread to the world. And just like he did with ICP and Forbes, right? It's like, oh, okay, all of a sudden there's this extra layer of validation that goes to that band. So, you know, as you do the first one, you know, which there's so many tools that artists have in their own hands that really it's just the idea. I mean, you know, Eddie's team was helpful to execute because the rest of us were doing a million other things in regards to our artists. But if I'm a band sitting at home, you know, looking at this video, you know, I'd be saying, wonderful. The takeaway is, you know, let's get the great idea and then figure out the way to execute it. Everybody has, you know, the tools are in the either an individual's or the artist's hands to do that with.
But
Eddie,
to your point, I think that the great idea doesn't work if the band doesn't have the great foundation, which, you know, thankfully Ice Nine Kills has the great foundation, and they've, you know, spent the last 10 years laying it. I don't think that would have worked for every band.
But I love that idea that the walk before you run a little bit with, you know, your marketing. Eddie, are there like just missed opportunities that you see a lot of artists who have these tools within their grasp that they just don't take advantage of?
Every day.
So
every day.
What's a couple things that just jump out at you, just make you want to scream?
Well, Mallory's probably heard me talk about this a million times at this point. Artists today, or labels, whatever you want to call them, they forget to pin songs to the Spotify page. Drives us crazy. Or, you know, and whoever watches this, don't take this the wrong way, because you probably know who it is. When you're on Instagram and you're posting about something going on and you post a link in the description, it's not clickable. So you're marketing into an ether. And the simplest 101 is put the link in the bio and just write the links in the bio. But a lot of these rock bands, they just don't understand that yet. They haven't really come into 2020.
Tim, anything that frustrates you?
I 100% agree with that. I mean, if you know, one of the things I was always taught too is if you're not including your sales link, why are you doing it as well? You know, like a service like Linkfire, which you can link to every single store in every single country around the world, is just a basic. You know, like if I'm a kid and somewhere in, you know, in Sweden, I want to be able to click and find my store and localize it. But yeah, forgetting a simple thing like that, it's really tough.
Derek, can you talk about, like, for me as a fan, one of the things that I find really frustrating are artists who show up when they want to sell me something, whether it's a ticket to a show or an album, and then they disappear for 18 months. And so I'm curious as to, has there been any evolution, or do you think there should be any evolution in how marketing can be more evergreen?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part, again, just going on specifically my artists, you know, Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, wonderful tools and really good to, you know, sell your products, your merch, your shows, you know, advertise things, your songs. But I think honestly, like, the most success I've seen with posts that have gone quote unquote viral or the most relevant are the more casual, or trying to think of the word right now, but just the type of posts that just are one of the guys sitting in a chair or sitting in a good setting that's not like pushing a product.
Yeah,
it's authentic.
It's not a commerce post. It's a person.
Correct. It's just basically them in real life, just you know, just seemingly comes out of nowhere, just a real nice picture. Those get the most likes, the most shares, the most responses, for sure.
I think the four of us have all worked in like the same scene too, and I think you can smell a fake pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know, in your career, you've worked with hardcore bands to, you know, the radio bands, and it's real. If they're not true to themselves too, it makes it really hard.
So Tim, how do you balance that when you've got an artist who, like, not posting is them being true to themselves, but you need them to do stuff?
Sometimes that does get really hard. You know, but you can do, you don't have to, like, it could be like, what am I listening to on Spotify? Sometimes that's personal enough. You know, like, is your artist a gym rat? Maybe he doesn't want to show his face, but you can be like, here's my gym routine. Is he a chef? Is he a gamer? Like, you can go in different ways where it doesn't have to be just, you know, here I am with 4 girls, you know, or something like that.
You know, and I think there's balance to it all too, because as you're saying, that is very nice to see. I also see artists that do too much of that too. Like,
Yes.
we don't need to see what's going on every 15 minutes of the day. We do want to see things. There is a good solid balance between showing your lifestyle photos, advertising your tours and your merchandise, and not overdoing each of those items. You know, spreading in balance. You know, spreading it across the board.
Derek, any marketing that you guys do for revenue generation between tours for the bands?
I mean, yeah, also, you know, different merch exclusives. You know, one thing that's been really successful for me is like, you know, and again, this goes back to bands that have a very long-standing fan base. You know, we find very unique things within the wording and the lyrics of the songs. You know, and we make products out of that the fan base would love. Like, an example is like this lyric in one of the Dance Gavin Dance songs that talk about Pico de Gallo. We made our own Pico de Gallo brand and put it up for sale, and it sold out like within like an hour's worth of time, hundreds and hundreds, close to thousands of you know, salsa. and that was a great revenue generator, made the fans happy, and it's a collectible item. So I mean, that's something that we're definitely doing. I mean, right now in 2020, I think we're all pivoting and shifting to figuring out ways to, you know, create sources of income through you know, streaming and video and things like that we couldn't do with, you know, that we didn't probably pay attention to as much when we were focused on touring and merchandise.
Eddie, that's an awesome point that Derek just brought up on the focus on streaming. And it sort of ties into what you were talking about, that piece of low-hanging fruit, or pinning your songs to Spotify. Like, I mean, how are you directing fans to Spotify to get more of those streams? Is that so low a revenue generator for the bands that it isn't a focus?
No, it's a big focus.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's a big focus. I mean, it's not necessarily just for revenue. It's a good marketing point. When you can say to somebody, I've got 10 million streams. I mean, Derek, Mike, what's the math on that? How much is that going to generate revenue-wise? Do you guys remember what the equation is?
I don't have it right out in front of me. It's still pretty solid for sure.
Right, but it's not you know, 10 million singles. It's not 10 million albums. It's still, you know,
it's second home money. Second home money.
There you go, second home money. But at the end of the day, it's still it's an important thing to feed, because that's how everybody consumes their music. I think it's important to also note that a lot of people don't only use Spotify. Mm-hmm. And you have to be smart on how you spread it out. I mean, there's Spotify, there's Apple. The one that I focus on heavily now, because it's how I consume new music, is YouTube. And I think rock bands and metal bands in our genre completely ignore the platform. And it's crazy to me that you know, we're still educating them on how to consume music, because YouTube pays just as good as anybody else does.
I think Pandora is another one too, because
Pandora's great.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of bands haven't been focused on Pandora, and hey, Pandora is part of Sirius now too. So I mean, you know, and I think Pandora is a lot more friendly, because you can go in the back end and put out a message to your fans that appears on your station, you know, about touring, or hey, here's my new song, here's an anecdote about that song. You can do those types of things with Pandora too.
Well, Tim, one of the things that we talk about at Outerloop is just how, especially for bands who are doing everything for themselves, you know, they're clawing their way to get up. They are often told you need to be really active on Facebook and Twitch and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, and it just gets spread so thin. And the same thing I think could happen with the streaming platforms. But so do you have any advice for artists who are DIY and need to figure out where they need to focus at this stage of their career?
I would actually say, you can spread it out between members as well. You know, if there's one person that's more familiar with the Twitter, have him run the Twitter. You know, but keep the message consistent. Have a common voice with each other. You know, one of the things we always try and do is, if you know the packaging has colors, for example, you want to tie it all together. Like have your imaging be consistent, but be one voice. But I would say, you know, split it between your bands. Like bands are multiple members. You guys, they can all do something. They all have their talents. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, you know, Spotify for artists, you know, they can go in themselves. They can see what they're doing. You can like, you don't have to count on anybody else. You can do it yourself. An artist we're looking at signing right now has done all their pitching through that, you know, app. They've gotten key playlists.
Which artist is that?
So it will remain nameless for now.
Mike, how many of your clients, present and past, have been active in using Spotify for Artists, or has you as a manager, your team at the management company, have you guys dived in to do that for them? And what are you guys doing? What works?
I mean, it's a little bit of a mix, in all honesty, depending on whether or not the band, you know, some of the bands really take to that and are motivated by being able to go in and manipulate the stuff and see the things in real time. You know, there's a number of tools that we use to measure these things and try to share it. I mean, to me, it's all about figuring out what motivates the artist and not trying to get them to do something that, you know, inherently they just aren't interested in. So I like to take it back a step, right, and figure out what is it, you know, like you guys talked about social posts and whatnot. I mean, you know, there's a healthy balance of everything. It's like you've got to have brand awareness be just one component of it. Then you've got to have calls to action be another component of it. As these guys talked about with balance, it's got to be the same thing with streaming platforms, or just the ways that people consume music. Ultimately, where I typically start is, where does the artist consume music? You know, if they consume it on YouTube, like Eddie's saying, where he consumes it, then he gets a little bit more passionate about trying to figure that out and figure out the way to game the system. I think that's ultimately like the mindset that all of us on this call have, is a way like of how do you sneak one past the goalie, right? Like, what is it? There's all this stuff out here that you're talking about, so many platforms, all this stuff. Like, what can we do to either work twice as hard as someone else? And really, that's not as appealing as work twice as smart as someone else. So what is it about which platform that, you know, the artist likes or that our team likes? But yeah, I mean, we do ultimately try to support in every way we can. But, you know, you've heard it a million times, Paul. It comes back to, you know, what is it that you're pushing? It makes it so much better if if we've got a great song and or a great, you know, brand, as we've talked about. And then as we're pushing that, it's just not as much of a slog. And, you know, the dominoes eventually start to fall and fall much quicker.
Derek, with it's funny because I was going to want to dive into, okay, Spotify. All right, now let's talk about YouTube. Now let's talk about, and that's not the way to go. So because what Mike's saying, I think really kind of nails it. With your clients, there are some bands that seem to have really embraced the music video more than others, perhaps. You know, like Dance Gavin Dance has got amazing, elaborate, at least by appearances, expensive looking videos. You know, and there's guys like Oliver Tree who've got tens of millions, hundreds of millions of views for his very expensive videos. What is the sort of the balance there between a budget for a music video versus when you might not yet have those views? Does it correlate?
Well, listen, I mean, you raised a very interesting point that I could just give you in terms of Dance Gavin Dance, and I think this is actually just, you know, indicative of what's going on in the world right now. They do have some very solidly budgeted videos that are very visual, and they're great. They're excellent videos. But due to what we're dealing with right now, they have an album coming out, and they still had a need to make some videos to further promote songs. And coincidentally, a video that we just put out that's having a really high amount of views and doing quite well is that we were able to get fan submitted videos of them following a theme of keeping clean, keeping hygienic. And, you know, we had hundreds and hundreds of submissions. The label went through and edited them all down and got the, you know, the fans to sign the waivers so that we could legally put them out. There was no issues. And we put that video out, I believe it was last week or close enough to it. And that's getting just as good as a response, you know, in terms of viewers and people getting excited about it. And that was done with a much more minimal budget than a higher end budget video. So maybe that's to speak for the times that are going on right now, and that's the best that we could do because we were not able to do a full production. That's not to say we would stop doing full production videos, but it's just interesting to see right now, given the circumstances that we're under and the resources that we had, we were able to put together something really cool and unique and creative, and it reacted very well.
Eddie, with the videos, either on YouTube, music videos, or just video in general as a medium, how do you need to align it with everything else inside the marketing strategy for an artist?
I think the important part about videos today, because the only platform for it to go on is YouTube or the internet or whatever it is. There's no MTV anymore or VH1. So these things have really quick burns. And I think if you don't hit it at the right moment, you put it out too soon, you lose your biggest asset. You lose your biggest tool to market the record, to market the band. And a lot of times I see artists go day in at the same time as the song coming out. And I don't think that gives them, you know, the fan base enough time to marinate with the song and learn it and really become familiar. That's why I like to space it out. And I think when you space it out and the fan base has already consumed the song and they get it, watching the video is just that much better.
And how about, like, what's the difference between marketing the video versus marketing the album that the video is supposed to be marketing for? You get my question there?
I mean, I think they all fit into the same packaging, right? You know, you're ultimately marketing a video is the same, in my opinion, it's similar to marketing. You're streaming on Spotify, you're streaming on Apple, or any other DSP, because it all counts towards the consumption number. So I look at a video the same way I would a Spotify playlist or a stream or anything that way. And then, you know, tying back into the you know, the album launch, of course you want the video to fit the aesthetic of the album and the band.
Yeah. Mike, is live streaming during the lockdown, is that working?
Well, I can't tell you. I don't have anybody who's live streaming. Frankly, we've opted, you know, with Ice Nine Kills to kind of do the slower, longer play. We've got some initiatives that we've been working on and some content that we've been sitting on. So it hasn't been a priority. I've seen some artists really seem to capitalize on it. I think, you know, the question is for everybody is how are the artists going to make money? So I've watched, you know, certain bands start to put it behind a paywall, you know, whether that's a Patreon or something else. And, you know, I think every action is intended to get attention, and, you know, live streaming briefs well, but when everybody's doing it and you just go back into the competitive phase of, you know, everything else, like, you know, you go to Spotify and if you're a no-name artist or you're an artist without much of a, you know, a jumping off point, it's really hard to get attention. It's sort of the same thing here with live streaming. So, you know, what we're concentrating on doing is, you know, timing it so it's got the most impact, not only to serve our fans who are patiently waiting, but also to potentially, you know, help us with the streamer revenue that's been lost by touring.
Tim, I saw you nodding while Mike is saying about making money. Is it making money in 2020 or is it about making money in 2021?
I think it's a combination of both. We just had a pretty established artist do a live stream behind a paywall, and it was very, very successful. We were really happy with the performance, but, you know, it's an artist on its 6th album. You know, that's a little different than a new artist who is developing. I would say for developing artists, for new artists, you can go on Instagram and do a guitar lesson. We're having another band doing a Netflix watch party where they're just watching a movie with their fans. You know, I think this is the challenge right now, is staying connected with your fans when you can't tour. And if I'm a band like the one I talked about, there's opportunities for them. They should be seeking those out, and I'm sure they are. You know, for the newer bands, I think it is getting in the faces of the fans you have. Tell them to share. Tell them to share. You know, play my guitar lick. Share this with somebody. You know, there's no right answer right now, but you know, I think each band is going to try and find its way, and it's a really tough period. I think.
Absolutely. Derek, it seems like probably your acts are on all different stages of album cycles, etc., where some of your artists, perhaps this couldn't be timed better, and others it couldn't be timed worse, like Dance Gavin Dance. What are you communicating with them? What are you telling them between the artists who it times well for those who don't?
Well, look, we had no control over any of this, but yes, it was some bad timing for sure. But, you know, in terms of those artists that do have albums coming out in the very immediate future, we made the decision to, can I curse on this? I guess just, you know, sorry.
Absolutely.
We made the decision to just be like, you know, fuck it, we're going forward and we're going to release these albums. These are what the fans are waiting for. A huge component of the physical part and the touring part are completely taking out. Everybody recognizes that. And we're coming up with all the best ways possible that we can still have a successful release. And this is for a few artists that I have that will definitely be putting albums out when the possibility of retail and touring are not in the mix at all. And we feel it's a better service to the fans to have the music come out. They're still going to listen to it. It's probably going to be on different ways that we anticipated. So that's every band that I work with that has material that's supposed to come out during the shutdown. They're still moving forward with it. As far as artists that didn't have releases planned, at least now for this period, however long that may be, it's a great time for them to continue to write, record. There's no big pressure on them. The touring again is taken out of the equation. I think after all this is said and done, there's going to be a lot of great music coming out for a lot of people, a lot of bands. It's going to be fantastic. And I think the live touring is going to be that much more robust. I mean, I do think there's going to be a big bottleneck, and it's going to be kind of like, shit, where do we go? There's shows every night, but it's going to eventually, you know, unbottle. And I really think a lot of people are going to take live music for granted, like they may have before.
I think it might change. I think it might change some consumption habits too. Like, because you can't go to a store. I think it's going to actually help grow streaming too. Right now.
I agree with that. I think I was more talking about like once this is over, like when people are having such a dire outlook. I think once this is over and cleared, I personally think the music business is going to come back that much more stronger. But for right now, I agree with you. Also, it is. Yeah. There's going to be a equal amount of consumption. It's just different how it's going to be consumed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Tim, anything different that you're communicating to your acts about, depending on whether they're mid-album cycle or outside of album cycle right now?
I think we're trying to create more content. You know, like that's been the one thing we're trying to, especially if we're heading towards a release, we're trying to. This is the time for you to go and record your drum lessons and record your guitar lessons. And are you a gamer? Make your Twitch channel now while you're home. Like let's get everything either set up and for some artists it's a time to take a breath and also figure out, is there a way we could be more effective? So it depends on the artist, but yeah, we're trying to take this time to get our ducks in a row in a lot of places where it was nonstop.
Eddie, did this lockdown really change things up for you and your clients, or are you able to skate through this relatively okay?
It changed it up a great deal, and it made it a lot more interesting. You know, a lot of our clients relied heavily on touring, and that was a big marketing driver. And now that that's gone, it's giving us the freedom to be more creative with other marketing drivers that they may have said no to had they just been on the road doing the typical, you know, album cycle.
Awesome. Mike, I got to leave you with some final thoughts on that. Anything you want to add to as far as like the value of marketing? Perhaps everybody's recognizing it a little bit more when when touring has gone away.
I mean, I think for me, like the takeaway really is, everybody, as Derek pointed out, this is happening to everybody at the same time. So no matter what is occurring, I mean, this does allow us to sort of take these fresh looks at things. As Tim said, either guys get a breather, or as Eddie said, people, they're having to pivot and do things that they may not have traditionally done. I think Tim and Derek both said that as well. But, to me, like the foundation of what we try to do with artists and marketing is all the same. It's just that we are now strategizing for, all online as opposed to the old mix, which was predominantly touring. So, inevitably, those of us on this call will hopefully be around for another couple decades doing this. We'll see other further changes, but I think what makes these guys successful is, they've laid the foundation. They know how to get the most out of any situation by focusing on the fundamentals inherent to that situation. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really exciting time, in all honesty. And I think most of us on this call, are thriving, because, as I said previously, it's like we didn't have the chance to ever have the artist stop. The engine is, the car stopped, it's up on blocks, and we're looking under it saying, what parts can we replace? What parts can we make better? Understanding that eventually the race is going to continue and we'll get the car back out there, and, presumably it'll just be better, and we'll have a better, those of us that are spending the time and focusing on this, and the developing artists out there, those who are really using this time as a way to work on some of these fundamentals, they're just going to be in a great spot, when it does return to whatever the new normal is.
Every single band, every single one this is not a problem of like, oh, we just had a couple bands have some bad luck. Like every single band is going through all this, and no one is growing touring wise right now while this is happening. So we all have to figure out what we can do to grow, on the other side, meaning the online side, the marketing side, without the touring.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys very, very much. This has been a pretty amazing conversation. So thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Derek from, Derek, you're from Sheltered Music Group. Sorry.
There you go. Yes.
Mike from 10th Street Management, Tim from Spinefarm, and Eddie from Undercover Marketing. Thank you very, very much. I hope you guys would be willing to do this again. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.